Okay, so we're live there. Back to Zoom. Okay. Sandy, do you mind going on, turn off your video for us?
She's muted. Can you?
Did you say Sandy?
Yes, yes, please.
I'm sorry. I'm
Oh, you're
sorry.
fine. Thank you.
I'll stop my video.
Perfect. Thank you. We got it.
What's? All set?
I think we're ready.
Okay. All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order, please, for the August 12th meeting. Again, I apologize if you have any trouble hearing or understanding any of us on the board, since we're talking through masks. Please let us know so that we can clear it up. We're going to start the meeting by asking for an approval of the minutes from the July 8th meeting, please.
So moved. Second.
That was a little eager. Do you have who approved and who seconded it? Just pick names because everybody did.
I second.
Yeah. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved. Let me explain to you how a zoning board works. It's a little different than a traditional just an advisory board meeting. This is you're coming before us because you're asking us to take an existing zoning rule and make an exception for you. If it is granted, the exception stays with the property. It's not yours to take wherever you may go. This is a quasi judicial arrangement. So we have a court reporter here. So I'm going to ask you to speak up so that she can hear and understand you, because she's take minutes on everything. And the reason for that is if you, for some reason, need to take you're not granted your variance or you have some other issue, this needs to go to the Court of Common Pleas. So it is run like a mini court. And no, I'm not Judge Judy, so you can just get that right there. If I were, I'd ask the mayor for a lot more money. So what's going to happen, excuse me, is I'm going to read the variance. I will ask whomever is going to speak after they're sworn in to come to the podium, state their name and their address for the benefit of the reporter, and explain to the members of this board why not being granted this variance is considered a hardship for you. What about this variance is making your life more difficult and you need to have it changed? Now, I'm going to ask anyone then I will ask, the board will ask you questions and we'll talk back and forth with you. When you've answered the questions, I will close the public hearing. The board will decide, talk among ourselves. We'll come back to a public hearing and we will vote. And you will know tonight before you leave whether or not your request for variance was granted. So if you're going to speak, and even if you think you may speak, I'm going to ask you now to please stand and raise your right hand. And remember when you're answering questions that you've been sworn in. So please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
I do.
Okay. Now consider yourself sworn in. Okay, the first variance, and there are 4 parts to this variance, and I'm taking each one of the parts individually. So we'll take each part and vote on it. It reads in general, Rob Sweet, agent representing Speedway, located at 1650 West Wooster Street, has requested the following variance for the construction of a new signage as follows. The first one, to construct a pylon sign which would encroach 9 feet into the 25-foot required setback, front yard setback, and exceed the 25-foot maximum height limit by 4.5 feet. Heather?
Thank you. Well, my presentation is not set up that way
That's
to
okay.
not address each one. So if I bounce around, be
That's okay.
patient. So I'll go over the ordinance for section 150.66 outdoor advertising in B, I, M, and S districts. This is a B district, a B2 general commercial. Under section B, a pole, pylon, or blade sign may not exceed 25 feet in height. And C, no other sign shall be placed in other required setbacks. You want me to proceed with the entire rest of the information where I give the aerial view and pictures?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Because we can go back to it if we have questions.
Absolutely. So I'll finish with the different ordinances that we're going to discuss. So section 150.16 is bulk and density regulations, and this really does give the information about building setbacks, and this includes signs. So in this case, a pylon under the B2 general commercial district has to be the 25-foot minimum back from the front property line. In that same section, outdoor advertising, section 150.66, you cannot have more than 3 outdoor advertising structures for each business or structure. And then under the same section, 150.16, outdoor advertising, under section E2, the total aggregate square footage for outdoor advertising for each business or structure cannot exceed the following, which is 336 square feet, again, in the B2 general commercial district. Here's an aerial view of the property. You'll see that the Speedway did purchase the adjacent former BP gas station, which is closed, vacant. They have plans to demolish that. The city is in the process of reviewing those plans. Fairly close to having those finalized. Again, you'll see there's multiple parcels highlighted in yellow here that do go out around the front of Frickers and Bob Evans, and then part of the Days Inn. All those parcels, literally as of last week, were approved to be consolidated. So technically, we could say that they're no longer off premise. One of the requests to have the Highrise on 75. But at the time of writing the packets and, getting the variances underway, it was the case that they were all separate parcels. Using pictometry, we're showing how the site looks pretty much currently. We try to give you each direction. So this is looking, again, from Worcester heading west, a view of the front from Worcester really heading south, and then looking towards, actually that's west there of the site now. Here's some pictures of the site, again, how it currently sets with the current signage and the current Speedway, and then again, the BP not yet demolished. Here's some facets of the current signage, the canopy signage, pylon in the back. Here is a view of the existing BP high-rise sign that is along 75. Some additional pictures. This is more so of BP and then Speedway. Here's looking at the current building and the canopy, and then heading towards the east facing the roundabouts. And this is the vacated BP. Speedway, again, a little more of the existing signage. Another one of the existing signage, the goalpost sign, they like to call those. Another view of the canopy and goalpost. Here is the site plan. It's much easier to see in your packets. We tried to, since we know it's a lot of information, we tried to highlight the location of each sign. So this shows their proposed building, which essentially is more so on the current BP site, the new canopy, and there are the signs highlighted around the canopy where those would be, one wall sign. And then the pylon out front is actually considered 3 signs because there's a separation between each face of those signs. They're not, if it was all one sign, it would still likely be a variance because it would exceed the size. It's kind of, what do you go with? So consistently, those are separate signs. Then in addition to that, we have the high-rise sign along 75 up here on that site plan. We tried to number the signs in the legend. It got cut off there a little bit, but we just wanted to number them because it was helpful so you knew there was a total of 9 signs. And then the table also has the square footage of each one. This rendering, I'll go back there a minute. This rendering gives more details, again, of the square footage. So each one of the pylon, the square footage of the high rise, and then the signs on the building, and then the signs on the canopy. And here is a more detailed rendering of what it would look like with all the signage. Again, we try to go back and number them and match the legend with the different letters for each sign. Also in your packet this is the existing site conditions. So this is called their demolition plan. So I wanted to make sure you knew about the consolidation of parcels. And then also, Mr. Waddle had requested the past 5 years of sign variances. So we did do a summary of that for you and put that in your packets. I know Jamie sent you about 500 pages of sign variances, so we thought we would summarize that so you could all see that and you all have the same information. We did not receive any phone calls or written correspondence. We did have a couple questions from adjoining property owners, but it was more about site details than it was signage, if that makes sense. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper, general circulation is required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the administrative code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed first-class mail to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedural requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Is there someone here representing Speedway who wishes to speak?
Yes, my name is Jonathan Woker. Can you hear me?
Barely. Can you speak up?
I'll do my best. I'm talking as loud as I can. I'm a partner with Rob Sweet, so he's unable to attend this. So I'm here on behalf of Speedway. My address is 5721 Dragon Way, Suite 300, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45227. And I also have Jake Miller, who's with Speedway Construction here, in case there are questions for him.
Let me interrupt. Were both of you sworn in?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
You were,
ma'am.
okay. Go ahead.
I understand you're having a hard time hearing me, so I'll do my best. And if it's okay with the board, I would like to kind of go through the 4 variances similar to what Heather did. And I'll start with the first variance. Speedway has purchased the property that was formerly the BP store. And as was discussed, our plan would be to demolish those existing buildings and build a new Speedway store. That would be a 4,600 square foot store with 8 auto fuel pylons in front of the store. Part of our plan involves closing one of the existing driveways. So currently there's 3 driveways there, and we're closing one to improve circulation and access there. As was mentioned, we have been working with the city staff on our site design, and we've incorporated some of the streetscape elements in our plan as well. So the first variance, basically what we're asking the board to do in total with this application is to consider the existing conditions. These sites, as I understand it, had multiple variances granted over the years related to signage. And our position is that we're proposing a sign plan that, while it does need variances, is significantly less in the number and the size of signs than existed today. And so with that, there are currently 2 pylon freestanding signs. Speedway is asking for 1 sign to be located on the east side of the site, and that would be a 29-foot 5-inch sign. So we are asking for a 4-foot 5-inch variance. And we are also asking that the board grant a setback reduction so that the sign would be located 16 feet from the right of way. So that would be a 9-foot reduction, if I understand that correctly. I would point out that today, as I mentioned, each of the convenience stores has their own pylon sign, and neither of those signs meet the setback requirement. So we've located the pylon sign on the east side of the property in a location that we think has visibility. And we feel that the hardship for this would be if we had to be located 25 feet back, it would be difficult for that sign to be seen. And, especially with the streetscape improvements that we are making in that location. So that summarizes the pylon sign. I guess I'll pause there, Madam Chairman, and see if you want me to proceed with the others, if you'd like to discuss these individually.
What's your pleasure? Shall we take this pylon, since this is what he's talked about, and ask questions now?
If you wish.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
go
fine.
ahead. Yes, please. Any questions or comments on this first one?
I've got a question. We're speaking of, comparative sake. What is the comparative this sign specifically to the other vendors in that same stretch in terms of total sign height. I'm not so much concerned about the setback as I am just the maximum height as it equates to other vendors in that same stretch. So I don't know if we have any information about that from the city or from Speedway.
I can say that our understanding is the existing Speedway pylon sign that's out there now is approximately 23 feet, but it's a different style. It's much wider, and so we feel that the proposed design is more narrow and it's appropriate for this location. But I unfortunately don't have information about other signs in the corridor.
May I ask a question in that regard? Heather, do you know how high the sign is for Verizon? That looks like a very tall,
It's very tall. Yes. I can't give you the exact height
but
off the top of my head, but it's much taller than,
it's taller than this request.
oh, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
Huh.
So that one I know at least is taller than this request.
Yeah.
I drove out there and looked at, there are 4 pedestal signs. Actually, there's 18 pedestal signs between the 8 and the roundabouts. So there's quite a few of them out there, but they're all different heights. So, but there are 18 of them.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There's a pylon sign, if you're looking at the building from Worcester, on the east side in the back. Is that going to stay? And how tall is that?
So if I understand your question correctly, Speedway, both Speedway and BP have what I call high-rise signs. And our plan would be, instead of having 2 high-rise signs, to have 1. So that's one of the next variances that we want to talk about. But the high-rise sign that is behind the existing Speedway store is proposed to be removed.
Okay.
Did that
And it
answer
will
your
be
question?
replaced with one? Just one
Yes.
sign?
I'm sorry. So our plan would be to install a high-rise sign in the location where the BP sign is located. And if you remember the graphic, you kind of have a panhandle that follows the interstate ramp. So Speedway's plan would be to install a high-rise sign to replace the BP sign location, basically the same height and area as the BP sign. But the one that's at the Speedway store would be removed. So again, we would be going from 2 high-rise signs to 1.
Anything else? Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. How tall is the one in the back? I was just trying to get a sense of.
My understanding is that
Taking down.
the one we're taking down is 200 feet tall.
No, that's the one on the highway.
I'm sorry, not 200 feet.
No, it can't be 200.
It's 70 feet tall. I'm sorry. I was getting my square footage.
Okay, the one in the back of the property is 70 foot?
70 feet. Yes.
Really? Oh, didn't look that tall.
Any other questions or comments?
Hmm.
The BP sign will be coming down also, correct?
Are we talking about the high-rise sign?
Yes.
Yes, and we're proposing a new sign to replace that. But the
That's the one you were
existing,
talking about.
yes.
Right. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments before I close the public hearing? Anyone here have any comments? Okay, we're going to take the first one, which was to construct the pylon sign, which was going to encroach 9 feet into the 25-foot required front yard setback and exceed the 25-foot maximum height limit by 4.5 feet. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Wait a minute.
Sorry, who said so much?
Who moved it?
Chris did.
Thank you, sorry.
That's okay. And Hobie,
Hobie?
seconded.
Okay.
His lips.
Okay, well, this,
Yeah, exactly. I don't know who's talking.
will the secretary call the roll,
Yeah,
please?
is Bob Waddle here? Is that Bob?
Yeah, he's on there.
Bob's
Okay.
on there.
Bob Waddle?
Yes.
Hobie,
Yes.
Chris Ostrowski,
Yes.
Everly,
No.
Hess, no. Ennis,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, you got your first request for variance. The second request is to construct a high-rise pylon sign which would exceed the 112 square foot maximum size by 88 square feet, exceed the 25-foot maximum height limit by 45 feet, encroach into the 25-foot front yard setback by 22.5 feet, and be off-premise.
Yes, so this is Jonathan Woker again for the record. Heather, I'm not sure if it's possible if you could
Just a
show.
second, I want to ask Heather to, do you want to have any comments or anything you want to show us anything on that?
No, I have nothing additional to add unless you have
Okay.
questions.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry. Would it be possible to show the site plan for reference?
Yes.
Thank you. And so while she's doing that, I kind of previewed the presentation on that already. Each of the Speedway sites has, each of the sites, the BP and the Speedway, both have a high-rise sign. And Heather, would it be possible to go to the sign plan, which I think shows the one you had labeled with the letters?
Yes, hold on here.
Sorry, I normally would have a board that I could show.
Is that what you want, Jonathan?
No, the one, keep going one more. I'm sorry. It's the one that actually shows the locations of the sign from a plan view. That one, yes.
Okay.
So both the BP and the Speedway have a high-rise
Actually,
signs.
that's the demo plan, right?
I think this will work as well. Both of the properties have a high-rise sign. They're each 70 feet tall, and they're each 200 square feet. Our plan would be to remove the one that's on the Speedway property behind the existing store and to remove the BP sign and install a new sign in that location. So the variance is to replace the same size and height as what's out there, but have one instead of two. And then the setback variance is related to the narrow width of the panhandle. So the panhandle itself is very narrow. And when you measure from the edge of the sign to the property line, that generates the setback that we're talking about. So we feel that, you know, the situation is basically we're replacing two high-rise signs with one and of the same size and height. I can go into more detail if needed, but I think that, you know, is the best explanation I can give.
Members of the board, do you have any questions? Comments?
So just to summarize, it's going to be one pylon sign for Speedway, and it's going to be the same height as the existing BP that's sitting in that current lot, right? Or that current parcel.
Yes, sir. I'm calling it a high-rise sign, but it would be that one sign, yes.
Yeah. So the existing Speedway sign that's there at the site of Speedway currently would be gone. We would only have the one sign for Speedway of that total height of the existing sign. That's it.
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody in the audience? Okay, we're going to close them, go into private hearing. Members of the board? Any questions, comments? Rose?
I guess I keep going back to the visioning task
You
force.
want to talk into your mic?
Oh,
Am I on right now? When you say you're off the public meeting, am I
Yeah.
still?
should I speak in here?
Thank you. Yes, please.
Listen. Okay. I keep going back to the visioning task force. And we spent 5 months on discussing signs, housing, et cetera. And what came out of that report, I don't even know if people remember that, was
I do.
that East Worcester is so cluttered and inconsistent, and signs should be addressed. And to my knowledge, I haven't seen any signs come down until now, the BP sign. We keep adding signs and signs and signs. And I just, don't know how you get your handle around this. I want business. I love business. I love stopping at those great stores. But you have to balance it with what you want for your town. And so I'm sorry, I just need to get that off my
That's
chest.
fine.
And one of the things in their report was, and Mary Ellen Maisie, I can remember, just used to go through the ceiling when she said, we've got to do something about pole signs. I have a problem with that, so I confess.
Okay. Anybody else have any
That's it.
comments?
No, I agree with you, Rose, on that. I remember that report and everything that went into that. And there's the worry of what does that corridor look like? What does the entrance to Bowling Green look like? And we've gone through the additional, the roundabouts and kind of that beautiful, setting that we're setting up. And we have new zoning laws that are being worked on now. So, yeah, and that's why, that's why I was no on the first one, because I think we're setting ourselves up for really nothing, to be done, because once we put in these variances, it's there.
That's there. And I don't like being labeled anti-business because I'm not anti-business. I'm a big investor. I love businesses. But at some point, we want you to respect our ordinances and our rules. And they're asking for 60% more than what's allowed. 60% more.
Well, they're also taking down.
Right.
I was going to say they're
and
taking down too.
They're taking down a whole nother station.
True.
That both of them are definitely, I wouldn't want to say eyesores, but they're not in the best of shape. The signs are, the both
agree.
pylon signs are sitting up there currently.
Right. I agree.
So if they
And
would
this,
just,
this is the sign that's further away from that, further away from Worcester. So this is the sign that's just visible, basically I-75. So it's not necessarily the same signs as, okay, you're on Worcester and you're looking around, you just see just the skyscape of signs.
There's a give and take because they're going from 2 to 1 with you. I agree, because it's not on that corridor. It's out and away.
Yeah, because we're taking down the large one.
Yep.
They're taking down the large
They're
one.
getting rid of the
there
real
on
that's
eyesore.
on the corridor.
Yeah.
I think it actually cleans it up. And so that's, the positive side of this. And so that's the only comment I wanted to make. I understand the concerns. I also know that everything on Worcester, on the south side of Worcester, from the roundabouts all the way back to State, that's your commercial area. And so you're going to have signs because you've got a lot of businesses along there. So, with business comes signage.
Yeah.
That's part of marketing. Nevertheless, this cleans up some of the, that's why I see this as a positive.
And so now the current sign that's there, their plan is to take it down, and that's reflected in the plans that the city has for the new site.
Yes.
So with this plans, it specifically is demonstrating that existing one's going to be gone. So we have kind of the assurances that they're not going to just all of a sudden just, we're not going to take that down. So
Well, and they could replace the face of the sign, but they want it to be, current building code. It's an old sign.
One of the thoughts that I had was the fact that they're going to have a larger building is a big plus. And they could maybe consider reducing the signage by 1 or 2, but 2 signs, and have a real big sign. They're allowed to do that too, aren't they? That's calculated as square footage. That canopy is long. And I was just thinking, I went out and looked at Myers. That's a very long building. They just have 1 sign up. And if they could do something like that, that would really stand out. But, just a thought.
Okay, I'm going to close and we'll go back into public hearing, and I would like a motion, please,
I
to,
will so move.
Chris.
Second.
Wait. Second?
Second.
Nate, second. Colby made the motion.
Toby, yeah.
I thought so.
Hobie and Nate.
Sorry,
Easier, I'd raise a hand that way you know what you're doing.
good idea.
Okay,
Okay, will the secretary call the roll, please?
Hobie,
Yes, please.
Chris,
Yes.
David,
Yes,
Judy,
Yes.
Hess, no, Nate,
Yes.
and Waddle.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, your request for that part of the variance was granted. Now, the last one is to construct a total of 9 signs, which would exceed the maximum number of 3 signs per business by 6 signs. And for the total signage aggregate to be 539 square feet, which would exceed the 336 maximum total aggregate by 203 square feet. Heather, do you?
I have nothing to add unless you have questions.
Okay, sir?
Yes, thank you. So the same basic approach applies to this request as the previous. You know, we currently have a combination of 14 signs on the property, and we're proposing what the city is calculating to be 9 signs. You know, the pylon sign that we just talked about in the first application, you know, is counted as 3. You know, visually it appears to be 1, but you know, so we're asking for 9 signs. That would be the 3 on the pylon, the 1 high-rise sign that we just talked about. So that's 4, and then the store would have 1 sign on it, and then the canopy would have 4 signs. And I think as was mentioned, it is a long canopy, and we think that the signage that's proposed is to scale of that. So what we're proposing would be on the face of the canopy that faces Wooster Street. We would have 2 signs facing Wooster Street. It would be the Speedway S logo and a Speedway channel letters that says Speedway. And then on the short sides of the canopy, so the east and west side, we would have 1 sign each. So, you know, we do have a unique situation in that we are a fuel station, and it's pretty common practice to have signs on our canopies, and we have relatively limited signage on the building. So again, we're asking for 9 signs because 3 panels on the pylon sign are counted. Regarding the area, again, I'd point out that the current site has approximately 778 square feet. So even though we are asking for a variance, we're reducing that sign area by approximately 203 square feet. And so we think that, you know, the variance is justified by the reduction in the number and in the reduction of the area. So again, I would say that granting this variance wouldn't have any detrimental impact on our neighbors. You know, they actually will benefit by having fewer signs than are out there today. So I think those are the points I'd like to make. And if you have questions, I'll try and answer them.
Anybody have any questions or
Yeah.
comments?
I do. If the property was sold, it's turning into one business. Those other signs do those signs carry to that other business?
Do you mean the existing?
The BPs, because I think you keep stating that they're existing between combination of the 2, but BP really doesn't exist anymore, does it?
Correct, it does not.
So those signage doesn't count towards this business. Am I correct or am I
It
incorrect?
stays with the
It stays
property.
with the property.
Oh, it stays with
Stays with
Yes.
the property, so it would.
Okay,
Yeah.
not the business, but the property in itself.
Yeah,
Okay.
stays with the property. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? All right, I'm going to close and go into private hearing. Anybody have any questions or comments? You're a fast group tonight. Okay, we'll come back out and may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there, did you get who moved?
Was that Chris? Huh, Chris?
Yes, I think so, yes. Chris and
And
Hobie.
Chris and Hobie.
Hobie.
Okay,
All right, Chris,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Bob Waddle,
Yes.
Hobie,
Yes,
Everly,
Yes.
Rose, Hess, yes, and Judy Ennis.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for your time and for your patience putting
you,
up.
all of your requests
you.
for variances were granted, and now you can deal with Heather again to get your proper permits.
So,
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, everybody,
so
back to,
three and four were together. I had four sheets.
I have the, I put them together. The
Okay,
last two went
okay,
together.
okay.
Okay. The next one is Glenna Ralston at 628 Cedar Lane, corner lot, has requested a variance to construct a 14-foot by 21-foot addition, which would encroach 14 feet into the 30-foot required rear yard setback from the property line to the east. Heather?
Thank you. Property owner Glenna Ralston, 628 Cedar Lane. We have variance under section 150.16 request for bulk and density regulations. The following for each district are the required minimum residential lot sizes, the required building setbacks, the required minimum lot frontage, the maximum building height, and the maximum lot coverage. Terms are defined in 150.03. This is a corner lot, so it does have two front yards. So in this situation, you do have to pick a rear lot line, basically. And years ago, that was chosen to be that eastern line. Over here, we have the zoning of R2 listed, again, under 150.16, and that rear yard requirement is a minimum of 30 feet. Here's the property, an aerial view of that, so you can see. Oh, it's right here. Sorry, I'm circling the wrong one there. Again, using pictometry, this shows the existing layout. This would be the front of the home. You can see the existing patio / deck there. Here's another view of the property. This will be that side view of that same area. Looking at the rear of the property, you can see that's a little tiny side yard there, we'll call that. But again, that's to be a minimum of 10 feet, so that's not impacting this. Here are some pictures of the property. So the front of the house, another view of the front towards that existing decked area. Another view of the front, and then this would be the other front yard looking from Cedar. Here's the sketch that was submitted as part of your plan. So it shows the enclosed porch, and then there will be a patio. The patio does not need a variance. That's not part of this. It only has to be 3 feet minimum from the property line. However, again, that building setback encroachment into that 30 that's listed is a variance request. We did not receive any phone calls or written correspondence from any of the adjoining property owners. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the administrative code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first class mailed to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met. I do know Mr. Pendleton is here on Zoom, so let me back out of here.
Good evening, everyone. This is Tom Pendleton with Pendleton & Sons. We are the proposed builder for this project.
Mr. Pendleton, we cannot hear you. Can you speak up?
Yes, I can. Is that any better? I'm right up there against the microphone. Can you hear me now?
Okay, can you hear him? Okay.
Yeah? All right. Again, this is Tom Pendleton. We are the proposed builder for this project. The Ralstons are preparing to move into this house from a 2-story. They're an older couple, and their plan is to age in place in this house. And there's really no place in the design of the home that will allow them to sit outside and enjoy their neighbors, etc. And that's why this enclosed porch is part of their plan. It will be very well lighted, very light and airy, and a 4-season room, heated and air conditioned. And their plan is probably to spend most of their time out there on that porch. From that side view, they can wave to and see folks walking by. They'd originally considered trying to put a porch on the front of this house, sort of in that arc that faces the curve on the street there, but it really does not lend itself to adding a porch out there. So they've requested this on the side. Basically, as you can see, it will just be a big, bright, airy room with an adjoining fully foundationed patio that they can sit on to enjoy the space. And that's really as simple as it is.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who wants to speak to this? Members of the board, do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Pendleton?
What's the size of the existing patio?
And I don't have it in front of me, I do apologize. It's about 14 by 14, roughly the same size, minus a few feet north to south of the new enclosed space.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to close the public and go into private. Any questions or comments, suggestions?
Oh, man.
I'd like a porch like that. I'm one in the aging ones. I'd like to have something like that. Okay, we'll come back to the public hearing, and may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Who was that? Nate?
Nate, and this one was David, I think.
David?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, will the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, I will. Nate Everly,
Yes.
Judy,
Yes.
Hobie,
Yes,
Chris Ostrowski,
Yes.
David Fleeger,
Yes.
Rose Hess, yes, and Waddle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your request for your variance was granted.
Thank you.
Okay, the third one tonight, God bless you, is Justin Marks on behalf of BG Beer Works, located at 322 North Grove Street, has requested a variance to allow the expansion of indoor seating for the existing microbrewery without providing the required number of parking spaces.
Thank you very much. The applicant obviously is here at the podium, eager and ready to describe his variance request for BG Beer Works, 322 North Grove Street. Under section 150.59 off-street parking requirements, under section A, references see table 150.59A, which is for the uses. So the zoning classification plus the required parking spaces. I give you a little bit of a history of the situation. There's multiple issues. I mean, it's a site that, it's very hard to redevelop sites that are near the center of town that are small parcels. It runs across former railroad property where we still have a lot of remaining commercial industrial zoning. It's just been problematic when it comes to redevelopment, not in a bad way, just in a zoning code type of way to make that be a site that's appealing for reuse. Secondary to that issue is that our zoning code does not address microbreweries, as many of you already know that. And so we've tried to fit it in where it fits in now in the code. And we're looking forward to update that and include microbreweries. So again, we're trying to make the best situation out of what our existing code says. So really the definition of a bar is really you sell alcohol primarily, and that's what it fits closely in. And the same zoning district is B2 general commercial. Also under section D, any project built in phases over a period of time shall conform to maximum parking requirements of each phase as constructed. Such parking requirements shall be constructed before any such phase of construction is approved. Here's an aerial view of the property. So again, you can see it is a small parcel. The building's been there for several decades. So again, he's trying to make the best use out of that building. He does own that now along with the northern parcel and then the southern parcel. So it does sort of function as one property, even though it is separate parcels. There is a shared parking agreement currently between his parcel, the Beer Works business, and then the facility to the south, which I believe is currently storage. Really, use hasn't been necessarily determined yet. Using pictometry again, we're seeing a view of the property. This is not necessarily current. The aerials only happen about every 2 years. This has since been paved. It was stone, so it looks much nicer than it did before, as a legal non-conforming driveway and parking is stone. It's been marked, so it looks definitely a lot better. This is looking at the front of the property from North Grove Street. And then looking at the northern side of the building. And then looking at the rear of the building. Here are some pictures of the facility now. So that building, of course, right there. And then this is just a southern building to give you an idea of that driveway through is pretty tight. So again, it operates as best it can under its current configuration. Looking back, so currently back there is where the garage doors are, is a brewery, and then of course the manufacturing towards the middle. And then you can see some of the existing parking. So there's a couple spaces here at that southern building, and then a row at the back of the facility. That would be that eastern property line. Looking a little closer at those existing spaces. You can't see it, but essentially the property line does run fairly close to where there's some outdoor seating right now. And then of course we've had COVID hit since he's opened his business, and there is some parking right there now, but the city has temporarily, I should say the mayor has temporarily suspended parking requirements until the end of the year. So it allows people to spread out more, especially with this beautiful weather lately. I think we've been lucky enough to have that available now. So there are spaces right now being utilized for some outdoor seating so people can spread out more, which is a good thing. Of course, we live in Ohio, so we're not sure how much longer that will last, but you know, for now,
Come December,
it's
we won't be sitting out
right.
there.
Maybe it could be 90. Who knows these days? So we have, again, that set up there, but there is parking spaces under there. And here's looking towards the north. So you can see that, again, the remainder of that parking, and then the aisle, drive aisle does swap around the building there to Grove. And then here's looking towards, I guess you'd say the west. So you can see as you exit there on North Grove. Here's a site plan. We've already had this on file. So he just highlighted where he would like to expand that seating. And that's part of why we made it a general type of variance for parking. So there would be that ability to use that space for seating. And maybe someday he may think, oh, I don't think I want my manufacturing in the middle anymore. Maybe I want to move that to the southern building. I'm not designing a site for him. I'm just trying to make it a little more flexible. So he does have ability to change his mind and maybe utilize that southern building differently. We did not receive any phone calls or written correspondence. Besides, the property owner did drop off a petition today. I gave you copies. I'm not going to read all those names. I think we'd be here a while, but I can say it's
Thank you.
dated August 11, 2020. Dear Zoning Board of Appeals, as neighbors of Bowling Green Beer Works, we support the expansion of the tap room for the comfort and safety of its guests and believe Bowling Green Beer Works is a valuable asset to the neighborhood. And again, there's several signatures, names with addresses.
Actually, it's 5 pages when you count them.
More to see.
Okay, and he's got
So
more.
noted.
A lot of beer drinkers in Bowling.
We didn't want to bring them all here, Rose.
Good thing.
So that's it for the staff report. However, I will read the statement I'm required to. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the administrative code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first class mail, to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Mr. Marks,
Hello, good counsel. Good to see you.
you need to state your name and address.
My name is
first.
Justin Marks. I live at 123 North Grove. Bought the house shortly after I opened Bowling Green Beer Works. I like the neighborhood so much. So when we opened initially, we thought, you know, we'd be doing a lot more carry out and wholesale, and the place quickly became a neighborhood get together and a real community building type of public house, more in kind of an English or European tradition than what we think of as a bar, which we're very accustomed to. So right now, I'm faced with very little safe space to put my clientele, which are typically from the neighborhood, many of which walk. We've done a good job, I think, to have some of the best protocol for COVID right now. No one could have expected this, so it's hard to say it's not a hardship. All the business people are doing the best we can, I know. I'm grateful for the mayor for suspending or putting a parking moratorium that gives us the ability to seat the few people that are comfortable with sitting in the front, which we've turned into kind of a mixed use area that complied with the parking that we have. I think we have 18 or 19 spaces. So that's good till December 31st, but our existing tap room now has 0 safe space, 0 seating. So it's just an in through one door, out through the other, one-way pattern. People get their drinks and sit outside, but then the thunder showers come and we've got problems because people tend to congregate. So it's been tough. Of course, we're thinking what's going to happen in October. We have no place to put people when the doors go down. There might be a safe table or 2 in the existing tap room. The tap room itself is smaller than this room. That's with the service and everything, the cooler or the, and there really isn't a safe table, really, maybe 1, but I wouldn't put my bartenders through that, you know. It's a very small bar, and I don't think any of them are
Everybody is having a good
ready or
Wednesday.
I don't want to put my bartenders in a situation where we've got people sitting at a bar until this thing is done with. And from what I read, it's going to be this time, hopefully by next year. I'm trying to figure out how to invest to take care of people and keep serving them through the winter once everyone's indoors again. So that's basically the short of it. None of us could have predicted this. The temporary moratorium is great, but I need to invest. And as a business owner, you can't invest if you have that much uncertainty. I need to build partitions and do more with tables and possibly do some plumbing if we're going to do some service up there. So in order to invest, I need a certainty of a variance. And I think that's pretty much all I've got. I guess I could also say that all my neighbors actually are commercial. I'm the conforming use. You'll hear it from Mr. Beaverson that he's a resident, but I am actually the conforming use. Most of all my neighbors to the north and to the east are commercial B2 that residences inhabit. So there is a long tradition of commercial activity that went that way, including Jack Bosdorf's carryout store that I get to hear people. So it's really a neighborhood spot. And I know Rose mentioned the vision, and I think in the larger scope of things, it's kind of the vision we have for local flavor, community building, walkability for our community. So thanks for your time, and I'll kind of, I guess, any questions?
And does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Justin, you mentioned that a lot of the people that come there, specifically in the summertime, are walking and are biking of this nature.
Yes.
So do you ever exceed your number of parking spots there?
We never exceed our number of parking spots without exceeding our number of seats. So we basically have the inside seats I'm talking about. Inside seats, we have about the same amount of seats as parking spots. So every person there has a parking spot, which I think in this kind of situation isn't called for or good for, I don't know, the neighborhood or the environment and business and, so, but the parking can fill up.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
But also, I will say, in the code, as far as I understand it, we could have shared parking with anyone within 300 feet. The free public parking behind Pisanello's here is about 440 feet as the crow flies when I looked at it with my architect. So we are probably one of the last B2 properties, besides my neighbors, that are this close to downtown that have this parking restraint. Everything else on that side got turned to B5 transitional because of the parking problem. So
how much additional seating are you asking for?
well, right now with COVID, we think safely we can put 24 in there.
Okay.
But after COVID, I don't know. I mean, we'll see.
Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to make any comments? Sir, you want to come up to the podium and give your name and address, please?
Robert Pisecki, I live at 624 Orleans. I'm here in support of the variance of allowing more seating for Justin's business. I know you had mentioned, David, that it seems like it's enough now parking based on what he has. But that particular business model is growing in the city. It's a business that's growing all over the world. And due to Justin being able to be more competitive, his current maxes him out of the seating. So I know you were saying, well, it seems like you've got enough, but for him to allow to grow and be competitive with this business growing in town, I think is yet another reason. This space has been used now under the current act of the mayor, and I think it's been maintained very well. I've been in there both as an employee and as a customer, and we've done a great job at keeping the distance and using the space as it is. I think we've shown that. The petition shows as well, the neighbors and customers see that as well. So there's my 2 cents.
Actually, the point I was trying to make is that I don't think that you really need the additional parking as much as you need the allowance for people to come there, because it is a neighborhood bar.
Yeah.
And people walk there, people ride their bicycles there. So there needs to be an allowance for that, to take that into consideration. Not that people are going to drive there and park, is because a lot of people walk there. You don't need the parking. It's
Sure.
just no to ask to have that.
And I think that, again, like I said, the thought is that that's great currently, but
Right.
with allowing Justin to be able to grow his business and stay competitive, there's a couple more businesses of that similar type tap rooms, not bars, in the city, and there's yet another one that's on the forefront. So
Okay.
I just wanted to share that.
Yes.
Thank you very
Questions?
much. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else care to address this?
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Comments? Okay, I'm going to close it and we'll go into private. I will say as a retailer, I've never known anybody willing to give up parking spaces, so you know it's got to be a good cause, so. Anything else? Okay, we'll come out and may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay, we got Chris and Dave this time.
Thank you.
I'm going to call for the vote, please.
Obie,
Yes.
Chris Ostrowski,
Yes.
David Flieger,
Yes.
Nate Eberly,
Abstain.
and Bob Waddle,
Yes.
and Judy Annis,
Yes.
and Rose Hess. Yes.
Request for your variance is granted, and you have a very impressive list of
Yes.
supporters. Okay, the last one is Josh and Tonya Heilet, 1405 Kensington Boulevard, corner lot. Have requested a variance to construct a 12-foot by 24-foot in-ground swimming pool, which would encroach 11 feet into the 35-foot required front yard setback from the property line to the east, Leah Street. Heather?
Thank you. Applicant and property owners, Josh and Tonya Heilet, 1405 Kensington Boulevard. In regards to regulating in-ground pools, it's under actually section 150.16. In this case is for the variance due to the building setback. So that is actually zoned R1 single family where the setback is 35 feet. Under rear yard, section 150.90C, any swimming pool constructed on a lot shall not be constructed so as to extend into the required front or side yards and shall be at least 10 feet from all property lines. In this situation, it is one of those famous corner lots. I think that's becoming a pattern where it's a little more challenging to fit things in. In this situation also, they do have a 30-foot ditch easement in the back that is regulated by the county. And they're in the process of having that reduced by the county, and it sounds like that will happen. So it's not necessarily a city issue, but it is something that will be addressed by the county. But again, in this case, it is that extension into the front yard on Leland. Here's an aerial view of the property where you'll see, again, a corner lot, so Kensington and Leland. I forgot to mention, there also is a neighbor, one house over, that had to do a very similar thing with that ditch easement. They did have it reduced. So you'll see the in-ground pool, very similar. Using pictometry, here's the rear yard of the property. Hard to see there with the tree. Here is the side of the house, or excuse me, the front of the house looking for Leland. Here is this actual, let's see, that would be part of the rear lot or side yard here, and then the rear yard is that way. Here is looking exactly from Kensington at the front. And here's actual pictures of the front from Kensington, the side from Leland. And then looking more towards the back there, you'll kind of see that natural swale there for that drainage. The back of the house again from Leland. The sketch that was submitted as part of your packets. We also did not receive any calls. We did receive a letter from a neighbor signed by another neighbor, so essentially two neighbors. I gave you a copy. It's dated August 10th, 2020, to whom it may concern. I am writing today to let you know that I approve of the request from our next door neighbors, Josh and Tonya Heilet, to encroach 11 feet on the 35 feet front yard setback for an in-ground pool. I know the pool and fence they plan to build will be a nice addition to their home and our Coventry neighborhood. Please feel free to contact me with any concerns. Sincerely, Sonia Brujic, 419-308-3253 is her phone number, and her email is listed. The other neighbor, I'm not really sure. I think that says Lisa. I can't read the last name, I apologize. And it's 1408 Sheffield Drive, Bowling Green. So you have a copy of that. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the administrative code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed first class mail to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Mr. or Mrs. Heilet, are you here to speak?
Tonya Heilet, 1405 Kensington Boulevard, Bowling Green, Ohio, 43402. So thank you all for listening to me today. Our dream as parents, you know, is to give your kids whatever you didn't have growing up for most parents. And for us, it was, this time was a pool for our children. And we purchased our home last year with the intention of getting a pool eventually. So when I started digging into it this spring, I wasn't privy to the easements that were in the back. So that's kind of been a little hurdle to get through that. And now that we've gotten that approved, the only spot we can put it in is what we've proposed here would be to have it stick out in the back 11 feet. The hardship would be just our kids not having the memories that they could get from having a pool in the community. My kids have a lot of friends in the neighborhood, and it gives them an opportunity to socialize and be with their friends and create good memories.
And they'll probably have a lot more once you get the.
Yes, definitely.
Anyone else wish to speak to this? And members of the board, do you have any questions or comments?
The only comment, ma'am, it would be, it's such a small space that you've got to work with.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it'll be done well because the property itself is valued. So it's, that help from the county would be immeasurable, I'm sure.
Yeah, the property when we purchased it last year was severely overgrown. So we've done a lot so far. And with this addition, we would just maintain it so much better.
Anybody else? Okay. Let's go into close the public hearing. Does anybody have any comments?
Next door neighbors have a pool of about the same size.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've had a rash of pools in the neighborhood.
That's the big thing right now.
Yeah, it is. You got to stay home. You might as well have a pool.
That's right.
All right, we'll come back into public hearing, and may I have a motion?
So moved.
Oh.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, Hobie and Nate.
Okay, Bob Waddle,
Yes.
Bob Waddle,
Yes.
He said yes.
I know, I don't know. Everybody can hear me. Hobie Johnson,
Yes?
Nate Everly,
Yes.
Chris Ostrowski,
Yes.
David Flieger,
Yes.
Judy Ennis.
Yes.
Rose Hess, yes.
Request for your variance was granted, so now your kids can even have more friends. This concludes all of the requests for variance. Is there anyone that wishes to lobby visitation? Is there anybody who wants to visit with us?
Hey, Judy.
Yes.
Thank
You
you.
do, Bob?
Yeah, actually, I did want to make a point. I wanted to thank Jamie and Heather for pulling all that information on the signage requests. I know that was a lot of work to put that together, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, we've all did. And Heather, you've done a yeoman's job tonight trying to manage everything, so kudos to you.
Thank you,
very
appreciate it.
much.
That's why we're here.
And with that, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
Motion is made and.
8:02,
Pardon?
8:02 adjournment.
8:02 is adjournment. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hey, Mayor.